There are an unlimited number of movies that should never have been made. It's all too common for a filmmaker, director, writer, artist in some way to create something that will revolutionize cinema as a whole, only for Disney or some other studio to swap in, buy the IP out, and absolutely ruin everything. Without wasting too much of your time, this happened to Indiana Jones twice. We didn't need Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but we got it. And honestly, for what it was, I kind of enjoyed it. The Last Crusade was a perfect ending. You literally had all the story arcs, all the character arcs set up within the original trilogy, wrapped up perfectly with them riding out into the sunset for the final shot. But if the movie had to be made, Crystal Skull is actually exactly what it should have been. The whole point of Indiana Jones and his style of adventure was that was what was popular in the decade that the movies took place in. So if we're going to do a movie that takes place in the 1950s with that idea in mind, what was popular was these sci-fi Martian man saucer person films. And honestly, it got the stylization down almost perfectly. A lot of the opening shots feel like something filmed in the 50s, but with more color and bad CGI. I'm not really helping myself on that one. Anyway. Also, I don't care what anybody else says about Mutt. I like the character. I really love the family dynamic. It's set up where Indy is the deadbeat dad trope that we all hate with a passion now. But what sets this apart is once he knows he's a dad, his character does a complete 180. He wants to be involved. He actually cares about Mutt and his education and where he's going in life. It's really sweet. He genuinely wants to be a part of the lives of his family, of Mutt, of Marion again. And the ending, I don't care if it's cheesy. It's cute. And it's another really, really great wrap-up of the character and all of that he's been through. If you don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Valenza. I'm the author of Empire of the Void, a new sci-fi action adventure stylized and based on sci-fi films from the 50s and 60s that I grew up with. Kind of like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg did with their movies. So having experience with writing and planning to write more, there's more coming next summer, Lost Worlds with Void, check out. I know how hard it is to construct a solid narrative that people will connect with. It's very hard. So I tend to give a lot of leeway to writers nowadays. But for a movie that cost over $300 million to make, that was just a studio mandate, I will be a little harsher on it. Now, I'm not going to go into all the reasons why this movie was a failure financially and narratively. We all saw the leaks. We all saw the articles. It's a studio mandate legacy film. We all know why it failed. All I want to do is give my opinions, my idea on how this movie could have been more than some by-the-books legacy sequel and stood apart as a really, really great conclusion to the Indiana Jones story. For this, I'm going to use James Mangold's initial intention with the film. I'm going to work with that as well as the characters that he wanted to use in the film. So this isn't going to be just my Indiana Jones fan fiction. This is what Dial of Destiny should have been, as directed by James Mangold and starring all those people. So James Mangold said in an interview with Collider, and I quote, "The theme of the movie was time. My Indy is a 70-year-old Indy, and so I wanted not just time in the sense of travel, but time in the sense of I can't undo the mistakes of the past, of my past." I genuinely think this is a great starting point. Where we left off in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he got married in his early 60s, late 50s. He had a lot of time to make up for with his family. The problem is with the MacGuffin. George Lucas said the one thing Indiana Jones should never do is time travel. And what's the first thing they did when George Lucas wasn't involved? Time travel. What a fucking genius move. So for this, fitting in with what James Mangold wanted, another great MacGuffin or treasure they could be looking for is Fountain of Youth. Okay, so in my movie, we open up with pretty much the same prologue. We do the flashback, we do the really bad CGI deepfake, but the difference is the MacGuffin isn't the Antikythera, it's a fragment of the fountain, maybe with some like scribbling some runes or something that are on it so they can, start to track it. Also, in this one, Voller doesn't get hit with a metal pipe traveling at 50 miles an hour because that would kill him, and that really took me out of it. We just don't do that. We can have an accident, connected with the Allies' planes coming in. Maybe his car, the train car he's on, is disconnected, and he missed it by that much. He just couldn't get the MacGuffin back. Now, when we cut to modern day, and we see Indy, things are just fantastic for him. He's on his last day before retirement. Mutt's got kids now, so he's a grandfather. He's spending all this time with Marion that he never had before. Things are wonderful for this dude. The deconstruction of the legacy old male character trope, it's so overplayed and it's so dumb. It worked in Logan, but that was pretty much it. Otherwise, you're just pissing off fans that liked this character that was a hero to them growing up. I've heard people say like, oh, well, it's realistic. This is what actually happens in life. Too bad. This is escapism. This is supposed to be fun. These are heroes we're supposed to look up to and base ourselves off of in a way. People we can model ourselves after and their ideas of optimism and courage. To see these people broken down, that's not what heroism in fiction and storytelling is about. It doesn't inspire like it should. It just makes us more depressed. But more so than that, narratively, it's extremely fucking lazy. Writers like this only know how to start from zero. They don't know how to make conflict out of something positive, when it's still pretty easy. Nobody wants to be torn away from a perfect life, especially Indy, because he's worked so hard and it took so long to get there. He just wants to hold on to what he can finally call happiness. But at the same time, this is Indy we're dealing with. And he's always been one to go on these morally righteous quests to stop the Nazis and to preserve history. So there's this conflict of interest, which is very exciting to work with. Furthermore, it makes him a more active character by choosing to go on this quest instead of being forced into it. All right, now let's talk about Helena, the biggest waste of a character. Maybe not the biggest waste. Anyway, Helena. So in my version, she's a student, and just a student. She is the face of the audience. She's heard about all of the Indiana Jones legends, all the adventures he's been on. She's a student now. She's trying to learn directly from him. She wants to be just like him. She is all of us growing up watching these movies. This works on a few different levels to build both characters up and their relationship. Indy is the more well-versed in the field character, while Helena is this student bookworm obsessed with the artifact at hand. So not only will their personalities complement each other, their attributes complement each other, but these character-driven scenes, like they tried to give us on the boat when they're like, Mutt's dead in Vietnam, instead, these will serve as a reminder of what Jones left behind, this optimism of life and happiness shown through Helena. She represents the audience and our desire to latch on to Indy and be like him, but she'll also be reminding Indy of what he left behind, the people that really matter to him as a character. It makes him consider, is this hurrah really worth it? Or should he finally rest with the family that matters most to him? All right, back to the story. This is Indy's last day on the job, as I said. It's his last day before retirement, just like they did in the movie. So Helena is prolonging this conversation as much as possible. She might never see him again. She just wants to get as much from him as she can as her celebrity idol. And we'll also tease the idea of the Fountain of Youth, which is her, as the audience, the stand-in for her own fan fiction, we'll call it. Inspired by her enthusiasm and serving as that reminder of what he used to be, he takes her to this museum where the artifact he found in the prologue is displayed. And this is where Waller shows up. Now let's talk quick about Waller's motivations. In this version of the story, it's not so he can kill Hitler to right his wrongs and prolong World War II. I hate the time travel stuff in that movie. No, in this version, he wants the Fountain of Youth so he can live forever and really create that 1,000-year Reich. It may be silly, but it's better than time travel. All right, here I'm going to skip to the climax because the in-between stuff, how they got there, isn't as important as what the whole point of the movie is. So we get to the fountain, and oh no, it's almost empty because there's a chunk missing, connecting different plot points together. There's a chunk they found at the beginning, and oh no, that caused the fountain to be empty now. Therefore, not and then. I'm looking at you, South Park creators. Now, here's the catch. Waller does drink from it, and he gains his immortality. Indiana Jones has always had horrific villain deaths. Downright traumatizing, for me at least. I couldn't watch Temple of Doom for years because it was way too scary. Now, this won't be a graphic, horrifying death because he's going to live forever, but it's just as terrifying in my opinion. Voller will live forever. He will always be young, and he will always wander the earth, but wandering as a reminder of a failed ideology. He will never have his 1,000-year Reich because it's such a fucking stupid thing. And he will live with that for all eternity, knowing that he will never be successful with this ideology. It's great. Nazis, they suck. And anyone with half a brain knows that. Now, we can have an exchange like Indy or Helena shoot Voller, and he's just like, whatever. And this isn't like Last Crusade immortality where it's like, as long as you stay within the confines. No, this is pure immortality. He's good. He is set for life, for eternity. But now we only have one sip left, and a very old man who wishes he had more time. In the version of Dial of Destiny that we got, Indy was robbed of all agency by being punched in the face by Helena. His choice meant nothing for the last third act of the movie. He was kind of just a passenger. And this is probably the most important change that I make. Indy has agency in this scene. Indy will be tempted. He can drink from the fountain. He can go on adventures until the sun dies out. He can constantly fight evil until there's nothing left to fight. Forever young. But that means he's leaving behind the family he fought so hard for. The people that truly loved him will grow old and die. Everything will eventually fade away from him. He will just be a person at that point, with no one that can really connect with him or attach themselves to him. A very terrifying existence of just being there. If he doesn't drink, he'll die. He's got a few more years left with his family, but he will die. At least, though, those last years and the life he lived will have been meaningful to somebody. And that love will matter so much more in maybe 10, 15 years he has than an eternity of nobody caring. So in my version, Indy chooses to rest. Yes, it's a very meta commentary on the film industry as a whole. We end the movie on the family all together, and yes, Helena can still be there. Mutt's hassling him for not taking him along this time. Marion was upset with him for leaving, but she's just happy to have him back. As the music swells, we hear that classic Raiders theme. Indy approaches Helena and gives her a MacGuffin for her own adventure. Not his hat, not his whip, a MacGuffin. She can stand on her own now because of how she's grown throughout this narrative. She's her own character. She's not a replacement for Indy. But Indy's story, at least, is respectfully and gracefully over for the third time. So that's my take on what Indy 5 should have been. If you disagree, or if you agree, or if you have any feelings at all, leave them in the comments. If you liked the movie we got, good on you, but chances are you probably didn't see it because it was such a failure at the box office. If my friend Parker is watching this, don't worry, I'm not upset that we went to see it together. I had a great time and you're a cool dude. If you did like my take on it, though, if you like how I would construct the story, then again, check out my book, Empire of the Void. It's a throwback to classic sci-fi films. It's got pure heroes, pure villains, none of this morally gray, ambiguous, like, well, actually the villain. No, it's a fucking villain. He's a bad guy. And the heroes are great. I've been drinking. And the heroes are great people. I think so, at least. It's available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com, and look for it in bookstores. I think I'm going to do this more often. Having alcohol when I record these is much easier than just talking to a microphone. Subscribe.